Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Thanks, Paul. Welcome back to the second hour of Tip Today. Fran, the people of Clonmel were not very grateful to Martin Manzer, as in the following election of 2011 he lost his seat, and that comes in from Eamon today. Well, he did Eamon, but I suppose there was a lot of other issues around that at the time as well. The whole business of the crash and the bubble bursting and one thing and another. 1800 938 007. Fran, I'm back again, but this is my last message to you, as I have used to dose. I see. The problem now with flooding is all man-made, with modern farming practices and the removal of ditches and drainage of wetlands, which all absorbed heavy rainfall, and also all this fabulous infrastructure build, which then by its nature means that there's less surface area for soakage. So there you go. Poor planning, bad farming practices. Kind regards, Maurice Leahy. Maurice, we'll let you off to the use, but but thank you for that. Is it yos or use? Yos, I suppose. Is that what it is? It shows you what I know about farming. Anyway, delighted to be joined in the studio by a drug education officer with the HSE. John Leahy is with me. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning, Fran, and good morning to all the listeners.
Would you know about yos or use?
I do, but maybe in a different context.
Maybe so, indeed. You're going to talk to us about drinking and young. Are young people drinking less, John?
They're not, in a nutshell.
Because the perception is that they are, but they're not.
Overall, when we look at stats, now there was a reduction, I suppose, up to 2015, but like we must remember, 2015 now was 11 years ago. Yeah. And since 2015, the stats are coming out that there have been a surge again from, up 12% in that decade, say in the last decade, from 2016 to 2025 of a percentage. And what's worrying in that as well is that approximately 50,000 children start drinking in Ireland, every year as well. And that's worrying, and because we do know when we look at the stats, the early onset of young people drinking can lead to dependency, can lead to other problems going down the line. And like what I'm looking at, there was a good Alcohol Action had a good report out in the last couple of weeks there about youth drinking in Ireland, and what's the real picture, and it is worrying with the alcohol consumption. And when you look at the World Health Organization and you look at other organizations, there's a concern that alcohol consumption is causing a problem for young people.
And the very young people, John, are less of them. I mean, they shouldn't be drinking anyway, but are less of them drinking?
Well, you see, when you say young people, the thing about this, when I'm asked about do alcohol education or do drug education, the concept out there is that everybody is doing drugs and everybody is drinking alcohol and every young person is a problem. That's the furthest from the truth, right? You look at the SPAD report that was for 15 to 16 year olds that come out every 4 years. Just 2/3 of young people drink alcohol and take drugs. They're 2/3 of that age group. So there's a third not doing it. Now, what I find when I go do talks, Fran, and talk to audiences and young people and that, I have to be very conscious that everyone I'm talking to hasn't or won't have a problem with alcohol or drugs, and we have to be conscious. And I know young people, that they won't take alcohol. They're not going to go down the road of taking drugs. But there is a cohort of young people out there that, think it's okay. It's becoming more and more norm. And when I talk to parents and concerned persons, the young people who end up down the road of drinking too much, taking drugs, it defines those people and it becomes their norm, but is abnormal, if that makes sense. Whereas we have a cohort of young people out there, they don't drink, they have no interest in it. They're good kids going to school. Let's say they're involved in their sport, their hobbies, whatever that may be, music, theatre, all that. And you take it, they participate in family outings and they're good at home and they're good young lads.
So socially as well as everything else.
Socially as well. And I know young people who go out and they don't drink. And I know young people who have tried going out, but they're nearly tired of it because they don't want that lifestyle.
And some of them are into their cars and that kind of thing, which prohibits drinking anyway.
It prohibits drinking as well,
Yeah.
and they're spending their money on that stuff. And
Would you give me that figure again? Did you say to me 2/3 of under 16?
15, 16-year-olds, yeah. You know, that's worrying.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's the norm now, Fran. That is the worry going forward with how normalised alcohol, and what I'm seeing with it, you know, and I know a lot of people out there. Let's go a little bit older than the young people. Like cocaine use is becoming a huge issue. It is I won't say it is a huge issue out there, because we have people, you know, socialise and think that it's okay to take cocaine. It's okay to, you know, it's the norm out there. It's all the lads are doing it. We're all doing it. And there's group, and they all find each other. And that's a worrying trend. And we do know, and I know I'm part of, let's say, a drive intimidation programme. That's a national run campaign. It's involved in Garda Síochána and all the agencies that work with drugs and alcohol, and we're seeing the intimidation coming back. And you know, people who take one drug, you know, might think it's okay, and again, as I spoke the last day, it's the progression. Like, there's a big red flag if you're going to start dabbling in taking drugs, right, because it's addictive. It's addictive. And it leads. People don't become problematic alcohol users, drug users, gamblers overnight. There's a process.
It's a path, yeah. And is there a combination of the drug taking and the alcohol then? Is that it?
They say with cocaine that, I think it's 89%, if my figures are right, that the first time people who take cocaine have alcohol in their system. They drink, they have alcohol on board. Now, what I'm saying, if you don't take alcohol, you have less chance of taking cocaine because of that start.
Sure. Yeah.
But and I always say this with regards to alcohol. We must remember it's a drug. It's a mind-altering substance. People, when you work with people who have gone down the problematic road of their alcohol use, like, they will tell you stories, things they done with alcohol that they wouldn't do normally. Mm-hmm. Now, I would bring that theory to drug use. So in the norm, and I say this to young people when I'm talking to them, and to old people, the majority of people out there who go out for a night out and want to drink, they probably don't want to take drugs. I believe that they're not in that. But when you put yourself, there's 3 reasons that we need more education and training with young people and with adults in the context. Some people just blame the drug for the problem and why they use, right? But it's much more than that. And I always say this, that the drug is an issue, the type of drug or the type of alcohol you take or whatever way you drink. That's one part of it. You as a person is another. Some people we know are more addictive and their mindset are different, and they have their choice. It's everybody's choice whether they want to drink or take drugs. That's their personal decision. And then you also have the environment. And if I'm in a school setting or talking to young people, I often use this in the point of view that we have to educate more around the use of alcohol, because they get up on a Saturday morning probably and they go out and they say to themselves, we're going out tonight as a party, 18th, 21st, and they've no intention of taking drugs, none. But they put in alcohol in their system. Now their mindset has a bit changed. So they go to a party or they go to a house, which is more normal now than a pub or a nightclub for young people growing up. Drugs are there. You know, they're ready available. You don't have to buy them. They're free. They're on the table, and you have a choice whether you want to take them, and that's your choice. Now, the thing I see where it starts for young people, first of all, they go in there, they're not thinking right. Their friend takes it. One of the group might. So that's encouraged. Here, try it. It's a bit of fun.
Peer
and
pressure.
I offer this in my training. The counsellors and the people who filter it often would have said that, like, people with addiction issues or who are caught would make great salespeople, because they'll convince others around to do the same as what they're doing, and there's an element of truth in it. So all of a sudden you're there, drugs there, your friends are taking it. Now there's peer pressure, but it's not forced on you, but there's peer pressure. Everyone else is doing it. Just, if I don't take it, what will people think of me? And that's internal, let's say, peer pressure, and that's what happens. Now your friend takes it. Say you fancy somebody, they're taking it. This is how it all starts, Fran. And and that's the worry, that we need to understand that, right? We need to educate them around the types of drugs and what it does, because there's no good in drugs. When you look at research with alcohol, it's, there's research there in Netherlands in this document as well that it's a mood alter and it affects the development of the adolescent brain. So this is what's happening, and that's the huge concern that I would have, that, you know, and when it goes to it, then we need, like, when you look at some of the policy actions or what we need to do as a government and policymakers in the country, you know, we have to educate and delay drinking for as long as possible in young people, in that point of view. And I believe in it, the point of view. So if you delay it, the first thing is they're not exposed to the drug. Them as a person are being, I suppose, educated in a way that these drugs are not good for you, it's not the norm, stay out of it. And you're keeping them out of the environment where this activity is going on. And like, that is the problem. They're the three factors that we have to keep, I suppose, putting out there to parents, putting out there to concerned persons, putting it out there to young people, you know. And that's not for every young person, because as we said, not every youngster will drink alcohol or go down the road, but it's a concern, it's not normal. And we do know this, like the brain, the human brain doesn't fully develop until it's 24 years of age. So if you're putting mood-altering substances into that brain
it's
before...
long-term effect.
It's a long-term effect. And like, you take a young person, and let's say we might drink, Fran, a couple of pints ourselves or whatever, and a young person drinks the same amount, it's going to have more effect on their brain than our brain. Right. We're fully developed, we're older men.
I mean, my observation of younger people drinking, though, is that they drink completely different than I used to drink. It's this binge drinking thing which really must have an effect on the brain.
Yeah, that's a good question, Fran. I hate going back to times past, right? But we have to in this situation, because when we look at alcohol, I grew up in a where alcohol was drank and was there. Yeah. But I always say this, since young people are going to drink alcohol, we have to kind of accept that as well. But today they're exposed to what I call high alcohol content drinks. We were exposed to low alcohol context. We had pints. Yeah. We had, you know, we hadn't even pints. I remember to be bottles even. There weren't even a pint. Yes. You know, and you had your beers, you had your lagers, you had your Harp, you had Smiddix, you had, you know, I remember lads wouldn't even drink a pint of Guinness because it was safer in a bottle, and they drank the bottle. But you'd look at the industry, and I suppose there's a bit of research in this that I think is important on that question. I just want to find it here. And it comes from Bristol, right? Dr. Laura Tinner, she's a researcher for public health at University of Bristol. And her analysis that alcohol companies are continually trying to target young people with their products. Now, what does she mean by that? They're designed to target the product for young people. Back then, we drank beers or wine, but not even wine, but beers or ciders and that. Now you look at young people, their drinks have been flavoured. They're higher alcohol content. This is where the binge drinking is coming from. It's spirit drinking. Now, if I go into young people, I'm asking them, you know, I won't ask them not to drink, but to even reduce their alcohol content in drinking. And what I mean by that, go away from the spirits, go away from the high alcohol content drink, which are flavoured and they're nice and they're sweet and there's a sweet taste and there's a sugar in them, and it's, you know, whereas try and start drinking your beers if you're going to drink. If you decide to have a drink in the morning, well, let's look at lower alcohol. And I do think we need more and more education around lower alcohol content drinks. And you take the last 20 years, we've been, saturated with high alcohol flavoured drinks, and this is having an effect. This is contributing, I believe, to the alcohol consumption, to the problem of alcohol. And if you look ahead now, we do know this as well, that people are presenting to with liver issues because of their alcohol at a way younger age than they did 15, 20 years ago.
Of course,
now, I have no research to back this up, but I believe it's the higher alcohol content.
Yes.
So there's a lot of factors that we need to educate.
And of course, the sugar
public.
Content of all of that then has other health implications
as well. And you know, and like the Dr. Smith, Dr. Bobby Smith, who's, you know, is involved in this document, and I'll just read out what he says, and I think it's important because parents and people, you know, think it's okay to give their young people alcohol. Like the reason it's 18 is for it's not a number picked out of the sky, and like, if I was in one of the states in America, the alcohol legal age to drink alcohol is 21.
Yes.
So we don't really listen to that message. But what Professor Bobby Smith said, and he's a clinical professor for the public health and primary care, right? We've seen some evidence of a slight delay in onset of drinking in Irish children, but the pattern of drinking trends tend to be high risk when drinking does start. There is still a hardcore of parents who insist that providing alcohol to their 15 and 16-year-old children is a good idea, in spite of the evidence that this is in fact harmful. But the number of parents who recognise the folly of this permissive approach is growing. The unrelated exposure of children to alcohol advertising sponsorship does, though, mean that parents who do the right thing are swimming against the tide of more negative influence. So I suppose what I take from that is, let's try stop young people from drinking. Don't encourage it as an adult or a parent if you have a son or daughter. And if you are encouraged, the influence of the markets out there and the sponsorship and the exposure to advertising, it's very, very hard for that to be like to be corrected, let's say, because the thing is, we have the social media now, and we have advertising and all that. They're being awash with it, and it's a hard time.
And John, sport has to play a part in this as well, because when we have a victory, where do we go? We go to the pub, and even young lads,
Yeah, and that's the culture. And like, I know, let's say take it, there was a big push with the GA going back maybe 10 years ago, but we seem to have gone quiet. And what I mean that, no sponsorship on jerseys from public, but I have seen sponsorship jerseys on young teams. I thought that was gone. Again, as you say, we look at teams that are winning, and not so long ago there have been teams, and there's up on social media and where are they, and they're out, and we have to discourage that. That.
But is there an appetite for that in sport to discourage that, John?
I don't think there is a real.
I don't think so.
And my thing, Fran, on this, right, and I suppose I have to be a bit careful, kind of say, we're asking people within an amateur, just say from a GA point of view, or even, let's say, I don't know about the other maybe sporting organisation with the soccer or the rugby or anything in that context, but you look at it from a GA point of view. They have the health and wellbeing officers. We had, alcohol support officers as well. But these people, what I'm saying, and no disrespect to them or regard, they're untrained in the area. It's not their speciality. They haven't, the majority haven't gone down the road of addiction counselling courses.
Have they not?
No, I would imagine, no, a lot of them, and they're asked to be the liaison officer in a club, and like to deal with, if you take any counsellor or take somebody who's dealing with somebody who has an alcohol, it's complex. It's not black and white. It's not kind of very simple to just say, well, stop drinking or stop taking drugs and that's it. It's not. Now, the J have a policy there, which is a well-written policy, is very good, but you're asking amateur people who's not their experience to handle these situations, and that is, that would be a concern in the context. Is it being really dealt with? Because those people probably haven't the confidence to really address it. And look, I would see, I'd get calls from a lot of J clubs to go and talk to them, and coming in with my expertise.
Yes.
And it's my area, and I'm comfortable talking about it. And that is the thing I see with education and training. And to say that as well, and I would say this as well from a school point of view, Fran, the schools are doing their best in the context of, I'd imagine if a drink or a drug issue come up within the schools, and they have the SPHE training and the whole lot. But again, the system is asking people that's not their area of expertise to deliver drug education. And what I'm saying, we need more drug education. We need no specialised people in it, because teachers are doing their best they can. They have the training on the SPHE, but it's very general. And it's very much by the book, let's say. And whereas you look at someone in a specialised area, that they can delve into it. Like, I look at myself, I'm constantly, I suppose the more I'm in this area of drug education and alcohol, the less I know, if that makes sense, because it's
so complex.
Yeah, it's so, and it's where we have to keep learning all the time.
Yeah.
And some of these men they're by the book, let's say, and it's not the area of expertise. I often say it'd be like me going in trying to teach English or geography or maths. take the class.
I know, yeah.
It's not my area of expertise, and we're asking this, and that's a bigger.
That's a very good point. Though,
yeah, and there's a big picture out there, Fran, that and schools are doing the best, and some have maybe more complex issues with drugs or whatever than others. And when it comes to door, it's we look at the policy. I do a lot of work around developing the school policy and try and protect. When we look at policies, not just the person or the young person who's in trouble with the drugs. You have to look at staff. You have to look at parents. You have to look at referral system. Where do we go with them? Where's the continuing support? Because by finding out that the person has a drug issue, or if they're admitting it and the family it's still not the answer to the solution. Is not, that's not the final solution. They need ongoing support and ongoing
John,
care.
I'd be very interested to know, in all of your experience on this, why, and let's stick with young lads for a moment, if the listeners will forgive me. Have you worked out why some young lads, they might even be indulging in a lot of drinking, a lot of binge drinking over a period of time, but they'll come out of that relatively unscathed and they'll get on with their lives. Others won't. Yeah. Have you thought about that? I
have, and a great point. Yeah. My thing on this with alcohol and my experience, right? Now I must, and I'm saying to myself for a while, I must try and find some research to back, because surely someone else had thought of it. But my beliefs with alcohol in particular. So, Fran, you and me can go down to the local pub and we'll drink. Now, you might have totally different effects to alcohol than I have. So you'll get on with your life, you'll turn up for work, you'll have your family, you have other commitments, you'll do that. Your personality won't change, you won't get in trouble, you won't end up in the Garda station, you won't end up in the A&E, you won't end up in trouble, you won't get suspended out of school, you'll stay participating in sport, all that stuff. But somebody else, when they drink the same amount as you, it is like as if they're nearly allergic to it. And I've often heard it described like, alcohol to some people is like white bread to celiacs, that it just doesn't suit them. Now, and the problem here is for that young person or for anyone when they're drinking alcohol and it's not suiting them, and I often say this to young people as well in the context, when I'm talking to class, you're right, not everyone will get in trouble with alcohol. But if you're the young person that you're opting out of your sport, you're losing interest in your own health, your own hygiene, you're losing interest. When you go out on the night, your friends are looking out for you, you're the one that's getting in a row, you're the one that's in A&E, you're the one that your parents are being rang about, and your friends are saying to you, like, Johnny or Mary, whatever, look out, be careful on that drink, and you're the one that your friends are looking out for. More than that, you need to take a serious look at your alcohol intake, because you're probably just allergic to the product. Whatever is in it, it doesn't suit you. Now, if you don't look at that seriously, what will happen? There's the progression. You're in a higher risk of progression into problematic alcohol use. And it's like that alcohol is not for everyone. There's a gene there that doesn't, when you drink alcohol, it doesn't suit you. Now, I know the industry would often say that as well, that it's not the alcohol is the issue, it's you as a person. And there is a big element of truth in that. Now, the problem for the person who's going down that road don't see it. And if you look at the Minnesota model and the, let's say, abstinence-based models, they talk about the word denial. So you're in denial of this, the alcohol is the issue. And what I find when you work with people, and I suppose coming from the background, working with people in addiction and they come into treatment, they have a great habit of blaming everybody else. Everyone else is wrong. Where I live, my parents, the school, community, what I do, life is not great. Everything is a problem. But more than likely, alcohol has changed our mindset into that concept. So if they take alcohol out, they have a better view of how life is. Life is not that bad, but in that process, and that's what the abstinence-based model will tell us, it will push us into a denial that alcohol isn't a problem. And that's where addiction then comes into it. If you're in that space, alcohol is not suiting you. And if your parents, your family, your friends, your sport, your employer are getting on to you about your drinking, that's a huge red flag. And what I see with people, they'll try and manage it on their own. And there is a bit of a stigma, not in Ireland, let's say, having an alcohol issue. But the reality for that person, like, if you don't address your alcohol issue, it's not going to get better. And that is the problem. And it's a great question that we do need more talking about it, Fran. We do need more education. I say that. But the biggest thing is if you're doing things that you don't normally do under the influence of alcohol, have a look at it. Like that.
And I've often seen it in pubs, and I witnessed it myself. A group of young lads come in, they all drink the same amount, and there's one, and you can point at it. You know he's the trouble, and it's going to be trouble for him.
It's going to be trouble for him, yeah. And you see, friend, we all know this stuff.
Yeah.
And when it's pointed out and talked about, we can see it. And I would say that if you see a young fella, and more than likely, if you would say that young fella, whoever, girl, they're the one that's probably going to end up known to the services, known to the guards, going to do things that is against the law, going to get in trouble, and not by their own main. The addiction, the substance, that's what happens in addiction. You have no control. Once you go to, into that level of drinking or problematic, you have no control over it.
And this aspect of what we're talking about, I rarely hear that spoken of.
No.
And I think it's vital.
You're right, Fran. And I think, and I suppose, go down the other line, I do believe this as well, Fran, in the whole context. I suppose harm reduction has come into, I know I talked a bit about it the last time, but harm reduction has played a big part in our combating alcohol and drug use. And harm reduction, we're not looking at taking the substance out. It's helping people, I suppose, to survive within taking the substance. So we're missing that bit out of it, that, the problem, more often than not, if you're going down the road of problematic alcohol use, drug use or gambling use, they're the problem. It's not, and it's not by reducing it is going to help it, because your addictive nature, you're allergic to the substance. So if you continue taking that, you're going to still have the same reaction. But the harm reduction doesn't focus on that, whereas the abstinence-based model does, Fran. If that makes sense.
Isn't it fascinating?
Fascinating.
I know it can be tragic for people, but it is fascinating as well. If people need help, John, I know that there's a phone number.
There is a phone number,
contact.
and again, look, I keep saying it's the HSE Substance Misuse Service, which is up on the grounds of St. Luke's, and the phone number is 052 6177 900. And often I say to people as well, you don't have to have a problematic problem to come to the service.
Sure.
But if you as a parent or concerned person are thinking that maybe alcohol, you're drinking a bit too much, I'm starting to dabble in drugs, give us a ring. We'll talk to you. We're not going to sentence you. We're going to help you and support you. And it might be the start of you having a better life. I think that's the reality out there.
That's a lovely way to put it. John, pleasure as always. Thank you so much for your time. John Leahy, of course, Drug Education Officer with the HSE. We'll be back in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.